Okay, well, Jamie asked me to talk about femtosecond cataract surgery, and just a little bit of audience. Who here has done femtosecond cataract surgery? Got a couple, okay. Well, the question today is, has the era arrived? So we're going to walk through a little bit about what's involved in the surgery, safety, and what we're trying to accomplish with it, and then come around at the end and give you the answer. Anyway, so I thought about retitling this. John Cropsey was in the operating room with me on Tuesday, and he popped in, and John and I kind of talked about it. We said, you know, femtosecond cataract surgery is just like M6, well, except different. And apparently John thought that was so good. I bear no responsibility for what follows next.
This one a different style. Unilateral system of attack.
There's been a lot of debate recently about the best astigmatic results with M6. These patients need to be spectacle-free. Most of them will never come back for follow-up care, and we want the best uncorrected visual acuity we can get them. Frown incision, straight, how far you are from the limbus, temporal, superior. I've just been finding I get much better results if I just use a little bit of modern technology here that we brought to Burundi. It just really helps me get the best final result. Mr. Powell, you ready for your M6?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get started.
Let's give Cropsey Productions a hand. I bear no credit. I only was brave enough to embed that in this talk without ever having seen that before. So, like I said, it's just like M6, except it's different. I have a couple of disclosures. I just want to be very clear. I'm going to talk about LensX a fair amount. I'm not pushing it. I happen to be a demonstration center, so if you really wanted to see what M6, well, M6 or LensX, either one is like, your rep can have you come in and see us do live surgery, but I really am not pushing it. I want to talk to you about what it's meant to our practice, what I think it will mean for cataract surgery, but I'm definitely not selling. On the other hand, I do have a very vested interest, and I will shamelessly point out that the Northwest Haiti Christian Mission is a great opportunity for you to use the skills that God has given you and to invest them for the least of these. So multiple of you in the room have been to Northwest Haiti. It's kind of crazy. We probably have the nicest eye clinic in Haiti. It's a little embarrassing, but we also have 2 large operating rooms, and we run about 5 tables at a time. We'll see 1,000 patients, do 150 surgeries, but we would love to have you join us and invest your skills with us. So lots of people have been here. There's Northwest Haiti has a booth. If you're not comfortable with M6 and you'd actually like to do phaco, well, we have 5 phaco machines there. So a little embarrassing what we've accumulated. Some pictures of friends of me trying to wash some feet there in Haiti. Ooh, steam. Cool. Don't do that. Okay. A little bit about femtocataract surgery. I was a resident at the University of Michigan, and the PhD femto laser engineers were working, and one night on call, I was on the retina service, and I was a 3rd year, and one of the 2nd years on the retina service gets a call, and it turns out that one of the femto engineers had struck himself parafoveal with a laser burn from a femtocataract. I've never heard of a femtocataract, but it turns out that the junior resident, Ron Kurtz, This guy kind of looks like Einstein, right? Not quite old enough yet. Ron takes this and runs with it. I'm a senior resident. I'm off to fellowship and off to work. And Ron takes this and runs with it and thinks femto technology could really be applied to ophthalmology, especially if you don't shoot yourself parafoveally. But he thinks the best application is going to be retina. So he actually goes ahead and does a retina fellowship. Goes to show you best laid plans in mice and men. Maybe it's not quite the retina. And so through a series of events, he develops intralays, and we can get rid of Ron at this point. Intralays, flat making, intrastromal ablations, rings, intact ring channels, etc. And then in the last couple of years, the FDA gave equivalency status because the laser makes incisions. It's equivalent to other ways to make incisions, and it got the fast track for approval. And after that, you get all sorts of companies: Alcon, LensAR, Technos, Catalyst. I'm not proposing one over the other, so there's no commercial bias. If it sounds like it, I apologize. My only commercial bias is joining us on the I-team. Here's a look at what this bad boy looks like. This is where the technician does the programming. This is a live HD screen of what the patient looks like, and that's where I do the programming. A joystick to drive the operating head. So there's a suction ring that holds onto the eye, drives that down, and the patient bed slides right underneath. One of the other systems, the patient has to change beds. Seems to be inconvenient, but whatever. This is how it works for us. Okay, I debated. I'm going to let this run. This is made by Alcon. It would be really cool if it worked again, wouldn't it?
The LensX laser system uses tightly focused laser pulses to separate tissue and create incisions through a process called photodisruption. Photodisruption is the fragmenting of tissue using light energy. It is called a femtosecond laser because each pulse only lasts a few hundred femtoseconds. A femtosecond is equal to 10 to the negative 15th second, or 1/millionth of 1/billionth of a second. A femtosecond laser works by focusing a beam no wider than a few microns into the tissue. The laser energy disrupts chemical bonds and generates plasma within the tissue. The plasma gas quickly expands and displaces the surrounding tissue. As the plasma dissipates, it leaves a cavitation level. A femtosecond laser incision is produced by performing thousands of laser pulses every second. This produces continuous, tightly controlled tissue separation. By adjusting the depth, size, and location of each pulse as it fires, the LensX laser can create a wide range of cuts on multiple types of tissue.
Okay, I apologize for the commercial bias, but I didn't have time to make that video myself, so it just gives you an idea of what the laser does and how it works. You got thousands and thousands of very precisely placed plasma bubbles, and then this tissue ends up being kind of velcroed together. And those of you who've done intralays or one of the femtosecond flaps, you know that you have to unvelcro it. This is just a view, for example, that we have from the operating microscope. Main incision, side incision. These are with the LRI or AK incisions. You can push those out more peripherally if you like. The purple is where you're going to place the capsulorhexis, and where you place the capsulorhexis is where the capsulorhexis goes. It gets within 20 microns of exactly what you look for. So that's the diameter of 3 white, red blood cells. Yellow is the chop pattern that's put in here, and then there's some cylinder cuts on this particular one. This upper right is sometimes a little bit harder to understand, but what you're programming here is the capsulorhexis. The yellow and the purple are the ups and downs, the heights and the lows. And what you're looking at is kind of think of an OKN drum, but now you took and peeled it out and laid it flat, is that you're looking at a cylinder of the lens, but it's laid out flat in front of you. So let's say this started at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, back to 12 o'clock, and you're seeing what it looks like, and you're programming where these pulses are going to hit the anterior capsule. This is a little bit more straightforward. This is the depth of the lens. You're seeing it in live OCT, and you can program just exactly how deep that goes. You know, patients say all the time, was it a big cataract, doc? And my thought has always been, cataracts, they're all kind of about the same size. Until you start measuring them with OCT, some of these things are huge. I mean, there is a major difference in the size. And it's like some of you guys are like, really, Moyes, you just figured that out? I'm like, well, I guess so. But there is a big difference in the size of cataracts, and it's kind of fun to see them in live OCT. You can make up any pattern you want or any combination of pattern. It turns out I'm just a 4-quadrant divide and conquer guy. I always have been, always will be. So what in the world, why do we want to do this? Well, I know all of you cataract surgeons get this all the time. People don't understand the difference between LASIK and cataract surgery. And even if they do, they expect LASIK-like results from cataract surgery. So this is Steve Slade's data. It says, you know, with one-shot LASIK surgery, we get about 100% of people to 20/40 or better, 85% to 20/20. You can touch that up and you'll get into the high 90s with enhancements. But with cataract surgery, only 75% of people are 20/40 uncorrected, and 35% are 20/25 uncorrected. And it's really, the purpose here is how can we drive this number, the 20/20s and 20/25 uncorrected visions, higher. Is phaco surgery an awesome surgery? Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's a privilege. What we get to do is Bill Hybels will say, hey, we get to do this. This is cool stuff we get to do. But what's the purpose of femto is trying to push the bar just a little bit higher. So we'll talk a little bit about corneal incisions, a little bit about capsulorhexis, and a little bit about the significance of lens fragmentation. So we all know about wound architecture and the times you've entered too soon and the iris is, you know, pops in your face and the tunnel's a little too long and then you have striae in your face as you're kind of bending down onto the anterior capsule. And I don't want to overplay this, but you're going to get what you design with the laser. It's going to be a very reproducible incision. So again, as we look at it as we're programming, you design and pull this incision exactly where you want it to go. Probably one caveat, I really like to be right at the limbus when I do steel, when I do my blade incisions. You can't get quite to, you have to be a little bit more anterior with lens X incisions, because just a little bit of arcus out there, it just, they don't open up automatically. So it's a little hard to see this real-time OCT, but here's maybe a little bit afterwards doing an OCT and seeing exactly, you get this exact wound architecture that you just can't make this 2-plane to a 3-plane incision with the blade the way you think you can, but you can get exactly what you want with the laser. On to capsulotomy. You know, to be honest, one of my good friends, a glaucoma specialist from Minnesota, who shall be remain nameless, though he's sitting right over here. Hi, Patrick. Patrick's like, wow, it's an expensive machine to make circles, and what's the big deal about circles? This was a couple years ago. Patrick's off the hook, but what's the big deal about circles and capsulotomies? Well, it turns out it's not just, you know, taking the tear out of radial tears, terror out of the radial terror. It turns out that the perfection of a capsulotomy is that much more important to something we call ELP, or effective lens position. So we all know the lens formula, and I'd love to torture you with it right now, see who can remember U plus P equals V. And we all know it's about power of lenses, shapes of lenses, and their position. And at the end of the day, the position of the intraocular lens is what's giving us these unexpected refractive errors. And it turns out that capsulotomy size is an important part of effective lens position. And then I'm going to walk you through that in a little bit. So hyperopic effect. So just bear with me a little bit because I really love the science and the numbers. So a typical intraocular lens, let's just call it a 22 diopter power. An anterior chamber lens might be 17 diopter power. A contact lens would be 14 diopter power, and an aphakic spectacle might be 10 or 11, right? So lens effectivity, the more anterior you move, you need to have less power of the lens. In a converse way of thinking, you take that same 22 diopter lens and you move it a little bit more anterior, it's getting more effect, and the light rays are going to focus short of the retina, and you're going to get a myopic result. Or the inverse, you take that 22 diopter lens and you move it posteriorly, it's going to have less effect, and the light rays will focus beyond the retina, and you'll have a hyperopic result. So lens effectivity and the effective lens position is the next step. That's the thing that we can't control. And I still explain this to patients. You know, I'm like, hey, a high-powered magnifying glass, if you just move it a little bit, it changes the focus. They seem to get that. This is a study I believe by Cioni. It just shows a scattergram of 95% confidence level. And you're seeing this is with a laser group. Is everybody in the 95% confidence level? No. Is it a tighter 95% confidence level than it is with manual? Yes. That's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for reproducibility and predictability of where that lens is going to end up by having a consistent capsular axis. So, and again, this comes from studies by Warren Hill, consistent to the capsular axis, critical to effective lens position. I'll try not to do this too much more. A 4 millimeter capsular axis, as it fibroses and fibroses, tends to push the lens more posterior. Whereas in the old days, when I was taught to do phaco, you made as big a capsular axis as you could to make your cortical cleanup. And then that lens would stay very anterior. So there's a lot of the variability of our postoperative results. This does not reach statistical significance, but you're seeing when you're looking for these tighter deltas of plus or minus a quarter, that's the sort of thing that we're looking for here. A little bit about decreased phaco energy. Decreased phaco energy, less tissue damage, less corneal edema. Hey, it's just like M6. Just like Glenn Strauss said the other day, we're looking for good, clear corneas the first day. I mean, so like I said, it's just like M6. So a 51% decrease in average phaco power and 43% decrease in phaco time when using the laser. You know, any of this, if you rotate your axis a little bit, the axis of the cracking incisions is going to be automatically rotated with you. Again, some people put in some cores. I think Jamie puts in a core and then puts a divide and conquer. I just put the divide and conquer ones in there myself. So moving on to astigmatism, this was a market scope research that said, hey, what are you cataract surgeons doing about pre-existing astigmatism? And the number one answer was nothing. Okay, over half of cataract surgeons do nothing. About a sixth do limbal relaxing incisions or astigmatic keratotomy. A quarter will offer toric IOLs, and a small percentage will come back with LASIK or PRK afterwards. You know, this is obviously one of the big issues. Can we hit our spherical equivalent goal, and can we deal with astigmatism? Because at the end of the day, it's going to have to be half, 3/4 on the outside to get people the uncorrected visual acuities that they want. I know you could push back and say, Andy, is uncorrected visual acuity a worthwhile goal? I suppose that's the whole premise of my talk, is that this is one of the things we can offer our patients today. I would never disagree with you that it's all about improved vision, but we're trying to take it to the next step of uncorrected visual acuity too. Limbal relaxing incisions, just not that precise, variability in how they're performed. The beauty of when we do this with the LensX, you can see they're planned right here. They're exactly where you want them. They're exactly curved. You can adjust them, and what you get is an 80% in the OCT view. You get what you ask for. The protocol that we use is a 75% depth, 75% length based on the Donenfeld, and I'll show you. You can get that on LRIcalculator.com. We use 75% of the length that it suggests. I use 80% depth, a 9.0 optical zone. Unless it's a huge eye, I may stretch it out a little bit. Other things I'll do is if there's an asymmetric bow tie, I'll make it an asymmetric and shift more of it to the steeper side. Or if I may go asymmetric if one of them's getting in the way of my side port incision. But I'm going to say, do not do this. You know, this is Terry Bergstrom at Minnesota used to kick the podium when he wanted people to really understand his next point was, don't do this unless you understand keratorefractive surgery, unless you can read topographies. I've told Alcon that this is one of my main teaching points is don't just tell people you can operate on Ks. You have to be able to understand topography. There's the picture of the LRI calculator, and we tend to, since we're in LensX from the head, we go with this view. You can do a temporal view as well. This is my former insurance agent. And what a not nice prescription. And so plus 2.25 plus 3.5 at 154. You're like, yeah. And maybe you guys don't see orb scans that much. Well, anyway. So here's his 154. His with the rule. I mean his plus axis astigmatism, and we can get about 2 to 2.5. And he was 2.9 in his Ks. So I'm thinking this is pretty good. So we did him a straight LensX. We dropped into 0.9, and he's pretty elated with that. Now, he's also an obsessive compulsive guy, so we may be doing a LASIK touch-up on that. That's part of one of our packages that he paid for up front. And the other thing is, other eye was $5.50 a sil, and he got a toric IOL. So, and he's doing very well with that. Just a quick teaching point. This is someone who had LASIK surgery elsewhere in New York. She came to me. She's got a regular astigmatism. She's, thickness 530. She was a -5. This all looks good. But she's got this little spot right here, this little hot spot. That's a little dimple out of the back of the cornea. And one of these days when I get some free time, we're going to write this up. But you got to understand corneas before you want to start operating on corneas. Anyway, so that little spot that was on the back of her cornea now is going to a high spot, and that high spot is not just on the back of her cornea, but it's on the front of her cornea. And even though there's not a big red smiley face, that is now keratoconus or post-LASIK ectasia. So my first glance, even I'm like, ooh, you're here for cataract surgery. I could put a really nice LRI over here. And then I start looking more, and I'm like, no, this is post-LASIK ectasia, and the last thing we want to do is weaken your cornea anymore. So big take-home lesson. If you're going to do this, you got to understand the cornea. A little bit of real-time.
Record now?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
So this is the laser. Vicky's, Jamie's my assistant. So that little docking ring is coming down. The patient sees 6 lights, and then up top you'll see my live view. Get it half full of liquid, hit the suction, and we're good. And then we're going to switch over. This is the programming view. So I've programmed the limbus center, the capsular rhexis center. This is the capsulotomy in OKN. This is programming exactly what I want the main incision to look like. And this is the LRI, and it's automatically calculated for 80%. That's been put in advance. It takes a little imagination, but right through here is the round circle. If you hate bubbles, don't do this surgery, okay? I have a fear of bubbles. Okay, don't go here if you're afraid of bubbles, because it does make plasma bubbles, okay? And it made the round, and now it's going to come up. It's putting a X in there, and maybe with a little better lighting we'd see it. It just made the AK incision and the primary incision. And I think this one, it wouldn't make the secondary because it was too close to the LRI. So you have to come back and do that yourself, but we can all do that. I'll let this run for a little bit. So I'm not sure this is the same patient or not, but that's how I enter the femto wounds. It's just a dull instrument. Little pointers. You got to look. 98% of the time, the capsular excess is free floating. If you just notice, the anterior capsule just blew away, but you got to be pretty sure of that before you blow it away, because if it is little tags, you don't want to be blowing that away. Also, you're used to going in there mucking around with capsular excess forceps, and you let a lot of viscoelastic leak out. So don't overfill. Be careful when you hydrodissect here, because there's bubbles in there, so there's a little bit more pressure in the bag. I also hydrodissect straight down the incisions because I can, and it's kind of cool. So this is it's going to be your basic. I'm basically phacoing enough to get a grip so that I can actually divide and conquer. And when you have a linear crack, it's really easy to get that to crack all the way through. So I don't even rotate. I just get a grip and crack. I wish I had the ability to fast forward. But this is about the rest of this video is about 4.5 minutes. And it's going to be pretty standard phacoemulsification at this point. Maybe we'll wait just a bit. I'll show you. The trickiest part about this now is cortical cleanup, because the cortical fibers have been truncated by the laser. So a couple tips. You got to have the polymer tips. I'm sure other people make them, but Alcon makes them. The polymer tips are very helpful because you can be a bit more aggressive. The key is you're used to going down there and grabbing those little floppy ends of cortex that are all over the place, and it's really easy. Well, right now they just stop at the capsule edge. So I got a little piece of extra nucleus, so I just mash it rather than put the phaco tip back in there. I always try to go sub-incisional first. Why? Because it's hardest, and it's just like, be a real man, get it done. And then I try to swing along the capsular edge. Why? Because you got to fill the mouth of that thing up, right? I mean, it doesn't really start to create suction until it's full. So I grab it, and then you always see me rotate around. So I'm getting a piece and then trying to fill up my mouth with more cortex. So I guess that's kind of the last. That's good enough for the sake of time. All right. I already talked about that. So how in the world do we present this in our practice? Well, I guarantee, I know there's practices around that are like, you don't want the government-issued surgery, do you? And it's like, oh, man, don't do that. I mean, there's high-pressure techniques. I can guarantee you we are absolutely not about high-pressure guarantees techniques. We never say you'll never wear glasses again. But it's all about educate, educate, educate. So it starts with when they first sign up for a cataract evaluation, they get emailed a link with videos in it. When they come in, if they haven't downloaded some of the information, they're given a brochure that looks like this, that talks about the different options. Then there's a video that plays in the office that goes over again. Laser-assisted cataract surgery and multifocal lenses. And then I come in and so I'll use some keywords. I'll talk to them about the basic cataract surgery risks, benefits, etc. And I'm like, and we have upgrades. Upgrades are code word for you have to pay for it. Do you want to talk about those? Because the last thing I want is anyone to feel bad if they can't afford it. So do you want to talk about those? And I kind of look at them. I'm like, hey, we all live on a budget. I get that. If this doesn't fit in your budget, just know that I'm going to take the very best care of you I can, and you're going to do great. So I don't want nobody feeling like they get second best. If it's a priority for them and they're willing to invest the coin in uncorrected vision, I think it's a wonderful thing. So, and we will walk with them. Some of the upgrades involve LASIK surgery, because we still can't, because of lens effectivity, exactly nailing it. Multifocal lenses, my bar, for if you're going to be offered a multifocal lens, your eyes got to be perfect and do backflips, okay? So if you start getting a little macular pathology, it's not for you. And it really isn't. But that's another talk. So a little changing phase. Hey, 1/4 of cataract patients are under the age of Medicare, under 65. There's an increasing demand for that uncorrected distance vision. I don't know, I got this all the time, that people confuse them, but now it's like there's an opportunity. A little bit of economics, I'm not selling, I'm just telling you, if you do this, you can't dip your toe in the water, okay? So, and do you have to do this? I'll go ahead and give you the answer. No, you do not have to do this, but if you do it, you got to do it, okay? Because the laser costs over $500,000, and you get, hey, 1 year of free maintenance. Thanks, Uncle Al. And then after that, it's about 45K a year of maintenance, and they need it, and they're good at it. They'll maintenance it, you won't even know they've been there. There's a little thing called patient interfaces. They're happy to charge you for about $3.25 for every one of those. So that's an automatic cha-ching, cha-ching. Residual income is obviously the story of corporate America right now. So if you do all the math during your year of free maintenance, it takes about 12.5 cases a month to break even. After you start paying for maintenance, it takes about 19 cases per month to break even. Without giving you all the numbers, it's never been a problem for us. So, and there's a surprising number of patients who are like, oh, I want that laser. I don't want you operating on me. I'm like, okay, if you only, and then you explain the rest of, well, I will remove the fragments and put the lens. Yeah, but I want the laser, not you. Okay, good call. All right, so here's the flip side, because every coin has a flip side. Not all practices or ophthalmologists believe in elective vision correction surgery. I get it. That's fine. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't talk bad about it, because we all look stupid when we talk bad about each other. But understand it. But you don't have to do it. If you got someone who does it, have friends. That's a good way to go through life. But if you're going to do this, I'm going to tell you, from my vantage point, there's probably two biggies. One is you're going to have LASIK backup, because if your goal is to get people out of glasses, you're going to need to be able to do LASIK backup. So you need do it yourself, a partner, or a friend. So we've tried to be in that position in our neck of the woods, that we are able to do that at a reasonable price and say good things about the referring doctor, take care of their LASIK, and every patient's done well, and that's all that matters. You got to be able to understand topographies and make sure you're not hitting that form-proof keratoconus that is going to make everybody's life disappointing. Physician and staff, here's the deal. If you're going to do this, it's a sea change for your practice. This is not just something like, oh, we're going to start doing SLT lasers. This is a major philosophy change of we're going to do elective procedures. And you, my friends, are the captain of the ship and need to drive that. So, safety, efficacy, demand. So my answer is, has the femtosecond era arrived? Yes. But, so I think that, femtosecond, I think, is here to stay. But is it for everyone? No. Do you have to do this? No. Is it the standard of care? No. Do I see it becoming the standard of care? Not soon. And then a little bit of Andy's quirky view on life. In some ways, I hope it doesn't, because this is one of these times where there's a unique niche in ophthalmology where we have medical care interact with vision care. And vision care is carved out of vision care, meaning no more glasses or contacts, is carved out of most insurance plans. So we have this interesting niche where we can offer our patients vision care at the same time. So it's a service that people want, and it's worth paying for. So I hope it doesn't become a standard of care and everybody has to do this, because it's a very expensive way to add on to the procedure if it's just for routine cataract surgery. So I'll just close with this. In our practice, this is all part of excellence, honors God, and inspires men. So we're going to do this to the very best of our ability. I have no shame. I feel great about offering this to our patients. We've done LASIK surgery for 18 years, and this is just bringing vision correction to our cataract patients. Or put another way, I tell patients this all the time: Jesus washed feet, we clean eyeballs. So that's what we're about, and thanks for having me.